Hey guys, it's me, Dacey from the future. When editing the episodes covering Bad Mormon, the recordings ended up being super long, so I made the decision to split them into two parts. This episode ends a little abruptly, but the next episode picks up right where this one left off, so there's nothing missing. And the next episode has all the fun clips that I'm sure we're all dying to listen to and react to and laugh at. So thank you for your continued support and enjoy the episodes. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to You're Literally On. This is part 2 of Heather Gay's Bad Mormon. We're back with Sarah.
Hi.
Sarah, what do you recall from last episode?
I recall a lot of talking about religious trauma. And I am so intrigued by this Heather lady. I want to meet her. I'm kind of obsessed with her now. You've made me obsessed with her.
She's very active on Instagram. Like, people message her all the time, and she writes them back. So you gotta hit her up.
Really?
Yeah, you can slide into her DMs. She might message back.
I might do that. Okay, I'm making a note. I'm gonna do that after this.
Yeah. So when we left off, Heather got back from her mission, and she wanted to move to DC. And her parents strongly discouraged that, and instead asked her to move to Huntington Beach, California, which apparently is like the Mormon singles city.
That's so random. I've never heard that before in my life.
Yeah, I feel like Huntington Beach is really random. I just didn't expect that. I didn't know that was like the
I
Mormon
would have picked
singles.
like Idaho. I need you to live in Idaho with other Mormons, not like Huntington Beach, California.
I just feel like Huntington Beach seems too fun.
Yes. And we can't have fun when we're Mormons. Just kidding.
Yeah, you guys have like potlucks and stuff. I know that much. You guys are big on casseroles.
Do not down Mormon cooking. I have had some of the best casseroles, and I know it's just not probably flavored to the nines, but that's okay. Just everybody cooks, and if you have a baby, you watch out. You are getting some casseroles and lasagnas. Don't you worry.
Listen, I am not knocking it because on the newest season, they make wedding potatoes or funeral potatoes, I think is what they call them.
I've heard of funeral potatoes, but I don't know what they are.
Yeah, that shit looked so good on the TV. I was like, yeah, I kind of want some funeral potatoes.
I'm about to Google it because I've heard people talk about it. And there's also that thing with the marshmallows. I think we might have talked about that the last episode.
Ambrosia salad?
Yes.
I don't like ambrosia salad. We have that. We have that in the South. I mean,
but it's called something weird. Like, I've heard people use a different term. Okay, these funeral potatoes, they look really creamy. Like, they have onions on it and then possibly like kind of cornflakes or crispy onions or something. Like almost like a hash brown casserole. They look hella good.
Yeah, and there's like cheese and stuff on there. They looked good on the show.
Yeah, I would eat the hell out of these.
Also, like, because I know Mormonism, they have roots in like early American pioneerism and like frontierism. So I know that their food can't be bad. You know?
Right. They were migrating from New York, and then they like wound up in Idaho before they got to Utah. So, I mean, the pioneers were literally living off the land. They didn't have a bunch of permanent housing for a long time.
All right, let's crack into it. I really hate when podcasters say that, or like YouTubers say that. Like, let's crack into it. I need to come up with a new thing.
You need to come up with your own, like, slogan.
Yeah. Instead of let's crack into it.
Yes.
Yeah, so part 3, Bad Wife. Huntington Beach is where Heather meets her future ex-husband, Billy Gay. When they first meet, Billy is this young, hot guy who's very adventurous, and he's rebelling against his family. And Billy's family is rich. They have a connection to Howard Hughes, and that benefited them through generations. I think it was like Billy's great-grandfather or Billy's grandfather worked for Howard Hughes through the Mormon Mafia, which I did not know what that is, and I did not look it up.
But I don't know what that is. I've never heard of that.
Yeah, I was like, I I probably should have because it sounds interesting, but that's where he got all this money from. They're very rich and they are like royal people in the Mormon faith.
Yeah, Howard Hughes had a lot of money, right? Like he was like rich.
Yeah, and he was like known to be an eccentric billionaire or millionaire.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's a billionaire, but
probably
I do know he was
the
known to be
equivalent to a billionaire now with his amount of money, but I'm sure he was probably only a millionaire back then.
Yeah, I feel like whenever I think of Howard Hughes, I think of the guy that owns Virgin, like Virgin Mobile and Virgin Records, Richard Branson.
I don't know what his name is.
But you know what I'm talking about? He's like the eccentric
I know who
billionaire.
you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like really, really rich. Like he'll never be able to spend all that money. He could like save the world with that amount of money, but.
Heather writes, when I started dating Billy, I was in such a love fog that I almost forgot how desperate I was to get married. For the first time in my life, I was falling in love with a man who was an actual candidate. A man who could take me to the temple and be sealed for time and all eternity. He was the goose that would lay the golden eggs for Easter, and I happened to cross his path. There was no moral dilemma to wrestle with, no real decision to be made. And I wrote in my notes that it is kind of sweet in the sense of falling in love and not having that weird guilt and forgetting all your anxieties for a short time. Mm-hmm. But reading it back, I realized that this is a common theme in Heather's life. There's no real decisions for her to make. Like her autonomy, there we go. Her autonomy is kind of gone. Like she goes from trekking to find lost children in the wilderness to being told like what college she has to go to, and then being told like where she's going to go for mission because she doesn't have a choice in those things, to where she's going to live as an adult and what she does after college. And I feel like it was just the illusion of choice, but it feels very much like she's just kind of going along with what people are saying.
Isn't that the illusion of free will, though? Because you're saying you have free will and you can make your own choices, but you only are supposed to make these choices in order to have this great life. So you don't really actually have free will, and you don't have these free choices. You have this way, which you're supposed to, and you're just going to be damned if you pick another way. And I kind of feel like Heather falls in that category. Like if she were to have gone against her parents, like things would be really awful for her and she would have been damned, so to speak.
I think it is the illusion of free will. I think having free will is saying that like you should probably make this choice, but you still can make the other choice. And I just hate that like the idea of consequences gets removed from the conversation so much when we talk about having free will. Like, you can choose to, I don't know. I don't want to use like something super hyperbolic, like murder or robbing somebody, like, you can, say you're like having a heated discussion with somebody. You can choose to hit them below the belt, right? You can choose to punch them in the face. Like you can choose to like karate chop them, but like, that's probably not going to have the best outcome, but you can still make that choice. Like
that is very true.
Yeah.
There are consequences to your choices, but I feel like her consequences, like what would have her consequences been if she had gone to DC? Like were her parents just going to write her off and like not love her anymore? Like what were those consequences where she felt like she couldn't to make that decision to leave?
Yeah, I would assume it would be her family being not happy with her, because it does kind of seem like through watching her on the show and also reading her book that she is a people pleaser, especially at this like point in her life and when she was younger. And I think that she just wouldn't want to deal with like that disapproval.
It may not have been as harsh as I'm thinking in my head, like disowning her. But you're right. If she's a people pleaser, I hate to let people down and have people bring that up. So you're right. That's a good point. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, I also hadn't thought about that. Because I don't think at this point in time she was even thinking of leaving the church. Like, I don't think that was an option. And I don't think her going to DC was rooted in any sort of doubt with her faith. I think it was, honestly, she was just like, I think 21, 22 at this point. So she's like,
She
I
wanted
want to go
freedom.
live with my friends in DC.
Yeah. Like every 21-year-old wants to do.
Yeah. So Billy and Heather date for 3.5 months and he proposes, which, insane. She
Not in the Mormon church, though. That is like pretty on par with the church.
I don't remember where I heard this. I know it was a reality TV show. I just don't remember which one. But the quote is, you should be with somebody through every season before you marry them, because you don't know how they're gonna be in the winter when it's cold and, you know, their car breaks down or you have a flat tire, and you don't know what it's gonna be like in the summer when it's hot as fuck outside and they're sweaty and you guys have to like go do manual labor, you know, like take care of your yard or something. And I was like, that is a really good point.
I love that, actually. Every season. I was thinking every season, like all the things, and I'm like, then we'll never get married, because every season of life, like that's your whole life. But no, physical seasons, I am not a friendly person in the summertime. So if you can handle summer, Sarah, like you're going to love me all year round.
Yeah, and okay, I love the summer, and Josh hates the summer and loves the winter, and I hate the winter. In the winter, I become like a gremlin. I put on as many clothes as possible. I don't wear my makeup. Like, I really become so, because I hate it. Like, I hate being cold so much, and it makes me miserable. But in the summer, I'm like short shorts. I'm eating healthier. I'm in such a better mood. And Josh is the total opposite, where he's like, I fucking am miserable. But yeah, I feel like it's important. That was important information for me to know before we got married.
Yes, before committing.
He also needed to know that there was going to be like a 4-month period where I was just going to be ugly. Like, and it is what it is.
I feel that. Yeah. No, I like winter because I don't feel obligated to go do things. And I'm like, I get to lay in my bed and watch TV. And I'm so busy all the time that it's really nice to have like a pause. And I take January. Everybody's so grumpy and sad in January. And here's Sarah being like, this is the best day of my life, because like I have a break from my life, I feel like.
Oh, actually, I'm so stupid. In my notes, I talk about how they date for 3 months in. The quote from the Date a Man for All Seasons is her book. That's where I heard it from.
Oh.
Yeah, because I wrote it in my notes.
That's funny.
Yeah, she feels as if her life is finally back on track. She's made it. She says that she sold him on the tip of the iceberg, and the rest would surely be a wonderful surprise. She does make sure to note that she wished somebody had told her not to marry a man if you haven't seen him in all seasons. So there we go. That is where I heard that from. She writes, Billy was raised in the same systems of power that I was. He'd always pushed up against the expectation, rebelled against the demand. By moving to Huntington Beach to surf, by quitting his family's company to start his own. But with a healthy mix of his bad luck and my desperation, he came into my orbit and I snared him, pulling him back into the magnet he'd been so tirelessly working to repel. What are your thoughts on that?
So it's like she moved there to find a husband to make her family happy, and he moved there to get away from everything, and they both didn't get what they want because they're divorced, actually. So she got what she thought she wanted. And that kind of makes me sad for him. Like, he's like experiencing this freedom and he's surfing and he's on his own. And then he just 3.5 months later, then he's married and he's having to go back to the life that he didn't want, apparently. So that makes me kind of sad for both of them, honestly.
Yeah, it did make me, I feel like I had to reread that quote a few times, because on the one hand, I feel like Heather is trying to say, yeah, he was like trying to get out of the system that he was being forced into, but because of her, he was pulled back into it. But at the same time, he's the one that moved to Huntington Beach. Okay, yeah, maybe to surf. I guess Huntington Beach is known for surfing, so that's fair, but it's also the Mormon single city, apparently.
Right, but like, did he know that? Because I didn't know that.
I feel like he had to have known. And also, he did propose after 3 months, you know?
Yeah, that's true. So maybe he didn't want to rebel as much as he thought he did. he wanted the appearance of rebellion, like he was making a choice.
Yeah, that is kind of where my mind went to, because it seemed like he wanted to have this rebellious attitude, but also still, like, fall in line, follow the rules, do what he was supposed to do.
Yeah. Which does also feel like a very Mormon thing. Like, you know, the idea that you get to rebel for a few months before you settle down. And that's like, you lived your life if you got those 3 to 6 months of quote unquote freedom.
Yeah. They get married. They go on their honeymoon in Hawaii, and it's fine. She says that they had a great time. For the second part of their honeymoon, they go to Molokai. Let me make sure I'm pronouncing that right.
Okay.
Because I don't want anybody to yell at me.
No.
Okay. They go to Molokai, and I did not know where or what Molokai is or anything about it. So I did Google this. It is an island in Hawaii that was a former leper colony. Now it's known for being more of a nature preservation, and it's really beautiful. While on Molokai, Heather realizes that she's made a huge mistake. Cue Joe Bluth from Arrested Development. I've made a huge mistake. Is Heather right now. Okay, this is like so cringe. And also, I worked in the movie theater industry for like 7 years, a really long time. So when I read this, I internally was like screaming and also physically cringing, because I have had to deal with this person many a time. They go to a movie theater to see Scream 3. And in Scream 3, there is a scene that features a dildo and a glory hole. Billy forces Heather to walk out of the theater and begins to demand for a refund at the box office. This is 3 days into their marriage. He does this. That's what I'm saying. Don't marry a man if you don't know how he's going to react at a movie theater, because this is insane.
Which also, in the Mormon religion, they're very anti-rated R movies. Kind of for this reason, like if you're never exposed to risque or dark or crazy scenes, like they're not going to be in your head, and you want to keep your thoughts pure. So like I get that in that aspect. So it really surprised me when you said that they were going to see Scream 3, because they're not supposed to be watching rated R movies anyway. So like what was he expecting? It's a horror movie and it was rated R. Like, did he think it was going to be wholesome? It's called Scream.
Yeah.
Like,
And even the original, like the first one is, all the Scream movies, the original ones are about kind of American culture specifically in the early 2000s. And the first one is also pretty risque. Like the movie opens with Drew Barrymore talking dirty on the phone. Yeah. You know, like, ooh, you sound great. Am I thinking of Scary Movie? Isn't that what she does?
That is what she does. Drew Barrymore doesn't talk that way.
I can't believe I got them like mixed up.
Scary Movie, and I totally was like, yeah. And I was like, that's not right. And I agreed with you.
When I said it, because I remember in Scary Movie, she's like, ooh, you sound sexy. And I was like, wait, Drew Barrymore definitely doesn't say that.
Who plays the Drew Barrymore girl in Scary Movie? Hold on. Was it Anna Faris on the phone? Or was it Carmen Electra? I don't remember. I don't know. It's not important. Carmen Electra, because there is the scene where she's running through the grass right before he stabs her and her clothes start falling off. And in the cast list, she's named as Drew Decker.
Oh, that's right. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
That makes sense.
All right. Sorry.
Moving on. Okay. Also, this is one time at the movie theater I worked at. This is when Logan was out, the rated R Wolverine movie. That is great. It's so good. And
it is.
I was working that day, the shift. It was a matinee showing, so during the day, this couple walks out and they physically grab my shoulder and they're like shaking me. The husband is shaking me, which, first of all, don't put your hands on me. And it's like, you need to give us a refund. And I was like, okay, did you guys enjoy the movie? I'm so sorry. And the wife pipes up and it's like, it's just F word this and F word that. And it's so gory. And I had to look at these people and be like, well, it's a rated R Wolverine film, so yeah. What?
I'm not sure what you expected.
Yeah, and that is how I felt in this moment, where it was like, yeah, it's a rated R horror movie that is based on the like American culture at the time. Like, I don't understand what he was thinking.
So yeah, if you don't want to see that, don't go see rated R movies like the church tells you not to.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a rated R movie that's like not that bad, but I can't think of any right now.
I'm sure there's one or two that's like not.
I feel like 3 Billboards isn't that bad. There's nothing like risque in it.
I love that movie. That movie guts me every single time.
Was robbed, and I will stand by this. I don't think Shape of Water should have won Best Picture that year.
No,
it should have been 3 Billboards.
Terrible. I couldn't even make it through Shape of Water, and I love Del Toro movies.
I don't think it was a terrible movie. I just don't think it was Picture of the Year. I think Lion was also up that year, the Nicole Kidman and Dev Patel movie.
Oh yeah, and I didn't see that though.
Oh my god. Okay, I was not ready to be emotionally distraught for like 3 days. That movie's fucking heavy. It's really good and it's beautiful and it's a really nice story, but it is fucking sad and also happy. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm going to have to watch it. I think rated R movies that are based on historical figures like Schindler's List and Joan of Arc, I think those kinds of movies, I think they're just rated R because the history is so graphic, and in order to honor the graphic of, or honor the history of it, you kind of have to, like Schindler's List, it's just disturbing. Like I think I cried for 3 hours after that movie was over. Like I couldn't stop crying. It was so horrific.
Josh has never seen Schindler's List. And one day he was like, I really want to watch it because everybody talks about like what a beautiful film it is and how important it is.
It really is.
And I was like, Schindler's List is not a movie that you just sit and watch. Like you don't just go out of your way to watch that. You watch it because you're shown it in class, or I was like, you just don't watch that movie for funsies.
You're not
it's not
this
funsies
looks like
movie.
A good movie. I'm going to put this on.
Once they returned to Utah, Heather writes, however, it was clear that I had just married a man who was already giving 100% when I thought he was only giving 30, and he wasn't ever going to be able to do the math. He couldn't see the differential, and that was terrifying.
Ouch. That's a hard reality to learn in a relationship.
Yeah.
That's a really hard lesson to learn in a relationship when, she thought he was giving 30%, or he was giving 30%. She thought he was giving 100%. And the harsher reality is that now you've gotten married. So like, what do you do with that information? Are you supposed to just like immediately get divorced? Because that's not what the church teaches. They're like really big on marriage and saving the marriage, even though it's been realistically a 4-month relationship. So, but that has to be hard and really devastating for Heather, I imagine.
Yeah, having the I think I'm trying to figure out how to word this. Realizing that somebody is already giving their all and it's just not enough for you personally is fucking tough. Because on a basic human level, you don't want to ask somebody to change who they are. And you can't like ask somebody to give you something that they can't like emotionally or physically or spiritually give to you. That they don't, or I kind of struggle with this in my own marriage where my husband's love language is acts of service. So like he literally went to get me headphones and is like trying his best because that's how he shows that he loves me. Like he gets up every morning and he takes the dogs out and he constantly gives them, he like always fills the water bowl. I do feed them. I give them their food, but he takes them out every morning and like he's the one that takes them out anytime they need to go. He's constantly getting me water before I go to bed. He does all these little things for me. And then to me, I'm like, well, you're just like doing what you're supposed to be doing. But to him, he's like, I don't understand why you don't see, like, I do love you. I do care about you. Look at all these things I'm doing. And I'm like, well, I feel like you're supposed to do that, which is selfish of me,
That's a hard place to be in because I do think in healthy relationships, there is that balance of like, you do this, I do this, and we're constantly on equal grounds.
It does kind of also seem like Heather married a person who was not ready to be a husband. because Heather was ready
to go surfing. He didn't want to get married. So like, I still don't understand why he changed his mind.
Yeah, that's what I don't get. And that's what I'm like, she's saying that he was so rebellious of the system, but then he's like freaking out over Scream 3. But maybe it's because he was married and he was like, okay, this is what you're supposed to do as a good Mormon. I don't know. It seems like he just needed some fucking therapy, honestly.
Yeah. I agree with you on that. And maybe if he had seen it with his guy friends, he would not have had that reaction. But he saw it with his wife, and his wife is not supposed to like know what a dildo is. So like maybe that's where the reaction is. It's that like protection man thing. Like, I have to protect her from things she probably already knows about.
That is such a good point. And I think it offers a really good insight too, because Heather, growing up, was always a rebellious little teenager, and she made the hot dog jokes. So she probably definitely knew what a dildo was, especially at this point in time in her life. And she read all her little romance novels and stuff. So she had to have known what a dildo and a glory hole were. But I think that's a little bit of insight. That it really was such a good point of Billy's mentality on women. Specifically, like, even though he was trying to rebel, allegedly, it seems like he still had these like weird views on how women are supposed to be. Like, yeah, because when I was reading this part, I was like, well, Heather's always rebellious and he's rebellious. So it kind of seems like they would have found some common ground on that. And that just didn't happen.
No, I think that's another good point, is that they both were a little rebellious. So like, why didn't they bond over that? And like, why were they not connecting? Like, oh, we both feel this way. Let's have fun with this and like let's have fun together. Not necessarily like leave the church or that kind of rebellion. Just like there's an edge to them. So like, why not be in it together? And now they're clearly not because of the Scream 3 situation.
Yeah, I think, honestly, it's because even though they were both unhappy with the system that they're in, they're still being performative of how they think they're supposed to be. Which is, you're going to be miserable being something that you're not. I mean, honestly, you know?
Absolutely.
And I think that is ultimately kind of the situation there.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, so 3 months into her marriage, Heather is miserable. She's trying to make Billy happy and be a good Mormon wife who is small and meek, and it just isn't happening. She calls her mom and tells her she thinks her joy in her life are beginning to ruin Billy's life, which made me really sad.
That's so sad.
Yeah, to think that your happiness is ruining somebody else's, like, that isn't, my husband's so happy when I'm happy. Even if he's miserable, he's like, I'm so excited that you're excited.
Oh, because like he loves you so much. And when you love somebody so much, you want to see them happy, and you're going to go to the play that you don't want to go see because look at how they're reacting and look at how happy they are. Like, you want to do things for each other, because even if it's a little thing like getting a glass of water before bed.
Yeah, like, you think I like going to baseball games in the middle of June or July? I don't know when baseball season is. All I know is that it's hot.
I don't know.
And you think I like going to that shit? No, but like, Josh loves going to baseball games, so
and it makes
so
him
happy.
so happy. And you want to be together because you love each other.
Yeah, and I'm there. I'm like, fuck it up. We'll have a good time. Sure. Like, right. I'm sweating my ass off, but sure, whatever. I'm drinking my little beer, so I'm happy. Yeah. So she calls her mom. You know, she tells her that she thinks that her joy and happiness are ruining Billy's. And I also think that's sad because her joy and happiness at this time are coming from being a good wife to Billy. And it's like, her being a good wife is ruining his life. Like, and I say good wife in quotes because by good wife, she means like keeping the home and stuff. Not to say people that are stay-at-home moms like aren't good wives or whatever. I just think there's many different definitions of a good wife. And yeah, I want to state that whatever that is for you in your relationship is what you should, what it should be.
Yeah. Yeah. But it shouldn't make you feel like you're ruining the other person's life after what, like, when did she call her mom? 3 months into their marriage. So they've been together now for less than a year. Like, that first year, I don't know if, like, I've only dated 2 guys over a year, but the first year should be easy-ish. Like, you're getting to know each other and you're having fun. It shouldn't be so hard that first year of any kind of relationship.
She calls her mom, and her mom tells her to suck it up because there's nothing she can do. And this is when Heather first mentions divorce. Her mom is like, there's nothing you can do. And Heather says, well, I could get a divorce. And her mom's like, absolutely fucking not. Heather equates this moment to the one with her dad in the temple, where she's staring across the aisle, willing someone to just stare back and say, like, yeah, this is all ridiculous, but here we are. Her mom tells her to join the club and figure it out, and that she can't get a divorce.
Ouch.
That's I just want to say, what club is this? The miserable spouse club? Who wants to be a part of that?
Yeah, I honestly, if my daughter calls me up 3 months into anything, she could have moved to Africa with her partner, and I would be like, girl, I'm on a plane. I'll see you in 24 hours. We're going to pack your shit and we're going to go. And probably vacation for a couple weeks together and then go home because I flew all the way to Africa to get you. But you know what I mean? Like, I'm going to move mountains to make my kid happy at no matter what age or relationship she's in her life. If she's miserable, she's unhappy, come home.
Yeah. I'm not trying to defend the mom, but I feel like 3 months into a marriage and you're like, well, I'm kind of unhappy. I could get a divorce, which once again, I'm sure we don't have the full context of what was happening in their marriage at this point in time, right, or the full context of the conversation and what all Heather told her mom, because she didn't say everything, she didn't word for word transcribe the phone call. But I could see my mom saying, well, like, not join the club and figure it out, but being like, okay, well, why are you unhappy? Like trying to, because if I'm like 3 months into my marriage and I'm ready to jump ship, I don't know. Yeah, because like, once again, 6 months.
Okay, well, that's a good point. Like, okay, can we talk this through? Is it just growing pains? Are you just trying to figure it out? Where here I am being like, I'm going to jump on a plane and fly 24 hours and come rescue you when it was just a fight.
I say that just because I've definitely called my mom and been like, I just think maybe we should get a divorce. And my mom's like, okay, you're being so dramatic. Like, no, you guys are fucking fine. Like, you guys have a good marriage. Like, stop. Like, why are you?
Yes, you might just be like in a funk right now and you need to just like work through this funk and you're going to be okay.
Yeah, for Heather's 1 year anniversary with Billy, she gets him this really cute gift. Billy is rich and his family has private jets. However, Billy loves Southwest Airlines.
Why?
Because they're cheap, and anytime they travel, he is booking Southwest. And Heather doesn't like Southwest. She's like, we have the money. We can fly Delta first class. It's fine. And he's like, no, we need these $80 airline tickets. I don't know how much Delta tickets are, but
I don't know.
So for their anniversary, she buys one stock in Southwest, and she has the sail framed and writes, I'd fly anywhere with you under it.
Aww.
And Southwest stock ticker is LUV. It's love.
Stop. That's so cute.
Yeah. She presents this gift to him, and his reaction is to say, what am I going to do with one stock? And everyone in the room laughs at her for this gift.
I just feel crushed right now. And I'm not even this girl.
Right?
Like, that was such a thoughtful, sweet gift. And I get he's rich, so he's used to mass amounts of money. But life's happiness has nothing to do with money. Peace of mind, yes. But happiness, like, this was such a cute gift. Like, what an ungrateful little shit. I don't like Billy.
No, I know. And the fact that him like loving Southwest is a thing and she doesn't like Southwest. There are plenty of things in my marriage or in my relationship where Josh loves the game 2K. We're both huge video game nerds, right? He loves 2K. I hate 2K. It's the NBA game. I hate 2K. Like, literally, it makes me irate. Okay. And, but Josh loves it. And even though I hate it, I would get him a cute game. Like, I've definitely been like, hey, do you want some, like, VC? I have some extra money, and I feel like, you've been kind of down a little lately. You could buy some VC, which is, like, the in-game currency.
Okay.
It's just like a nice thing. Like, I don't necessarily like giving money to fucking 2K, but it makes my husband happy. He gets to buy new shoes or whatever the fuck they do with the VC on there. Level up their characters or something. I don't know.
But wouldn't it mean more to Josh knowing that you didn't like this thing that he loved and you made this gesture? Like, she made it clear she doesn't like Southwest, but now she's making this gesture like, look, I'm trying to love the things that you love, even when I don't. And then she gets laughed at.
By everyone, because they're at they're at his birthday party by his family and stuff. They're laughing at her gift.
Yeah, those sound like bullies.
Yeah, oh my God, literally, that is like some 12-year-old shit. What am I gonna do with the one stock? Shut up, Billy. Like,
it says love, god damn it. And honestly, the laughing part gets to me because no one wants to be laughed at, especially in a very vulnerable situation. She's still new to the family and she's trying to do this cute thing. And I'm just picturing her mother-in-law like, look at this dumb girl. Like, that's probably not what she thought. But in my head, like when I envision this scenario, that's what I'm picturing. And I just want to punch all of them for her.
Yeah, and also, like, that's your spouse that they're laughing at.
Yeah.
That's the person that you promised to love and protect. That's your wife.
Yeah.
That they're laughing at. Like, hello? Like, what's that clicking? And Billy said, but then it goes back to this whole thing where, like, he wants to be this, like, rebellious guy who's, like, not elitist and flies Southwest all the time. And then it's like, what am I going to do with one stock? What the fuck you're going to tell people that you're a stockholder at Southwest? I don't know. Like, you're the one that loves Southwest so fucking much. Like, just take the PJ. What? I don't understand.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm with you on that.
Yeah. So for the next year or so, Billy and Heather fall into a comfortable routine. He goes to work, she keeps the house, they watch TV together, and that's their life. Heather writes, so long as I didn't get fat, turn frigid, or fuck around, I'd be taken care of. And even if I did do those things, I'd probably still be able to work it out. I didn't know anyone who had ever gotten divorced, even when the circumstances were horrendous. We had signed with our souls. There was no turning back. Certainly not for something as selfish as self-fulfillment or personal destiny. If my cup didn't runneth over, I needed to find a smaller cup.
That's like the, who is it? Elise Myers on TikTok, where she says something about like, go find less. And that kind of makes me feel that way. Like, I have to go find a smaller cup. Like, I have to go make myself smaller. And the point of what Elise Myers is saying is like, you shouldn't have to do that. You should find people who want to love you for who you are and not shrink yourself. And it took me a really, really long time in my life to figure out that I'm going to be who I'm going to be, and people are either going to love me or I'm not for them, and that's okay. I don't have to be for everybody, but I don't want to be smaller anymore. And I've definitely been the Heather where I've been like, oh, I don't fit in with these women, or I don't fit in my marriage, or I don't fit in the relationship that I think I should. So let me just shrink. And I don't want to do that anymore. And it's so empowering when something switches in you where you go, fuck that. I'm who I am, and you're going to love me or you're going to hate me, and I don't care anymore.
Yeah, I wrote in my notes that I feel like a lot of women feel this way about finding a smaller cup. I wrote that I feel like a lot of women do feel this way in their marriages, and I don't want to, like broad strokes it. I just, especially growing up in the Southern Baptist community, I remember the women in our church would always kind of have this mentality of making themselves smaller. Like, oh, my husband's not happy, so it must be me. Like, this is my problem that I need to fix. And it's like, no, like, it's not your problem to fix. Actually, somebody else's personal happiness is not your problem. It's a them problem. That's a you issue. Like, or that's a them issue, not a you issue.
Yeah.
And yeah, I feel like Heather is saying the quiet part out loud in this.
Well, and I think it's so important as women for us to start saying those quiet parts out loud. You know, like women have sat in silence for so long. Why do we have to continue to do that? And it's so empowering to see other women who stand up and they go, it's enough. Like, I'm done with this. We're going to be bigger and better. And, you know, no spoiler alerts, but I know Heather has daughters. So what a beautiful thing to show her daughters that they don't have to be that way. She's making these generational curses, like she's breaking them. And that's such a great gift to give to the next generation.
Yeah, that's actually a big storyline for her, like personal storyline on the show, is teaching her daughters that they can just be themselves. And I actually that's one of my favorite, like I love seeing her and her daughters. So it's during this time that Heather discovers she's pregnant and she becomes a mom. And being a mother really changes things for Heather. She doesn't really care about her marriage anymore because Billy is the reason that she has this wonderful gift.
Oh,
yeah, I thought that was really cute. I was like, okay, so and also I like that she has this new purpose. Like she doesn't have to, you know, what is the saying? Bend yourself over, or like she doesn't have to break her back.
Right.
Trying to make this marriage
backwards work. Yeah,
there we go.
She doesn't have to do any of that. Yeah.
Yeah, she's not having to, you know, like kill herself over this fucking marriage because now she has a new thing that she can kind of funnel those feelings into and that work into. And 3 daughters later, Heather hits her stride. Being a mother reignites that industrious streak in her DNA. With her free time, she teaches herself photography and she gets pretty good at it. This leads to her creating her second business with Billy, Old Nauvoo. Told you it was going to come up again. And they basically take pictures of the temple and Photoshop them to look more ethereal. And they frame them. They put Mormon song lyrics underneath. The Mormons go fucking nuts for this. Because you're supposed to have a picture of the temple. You don't have crosses. Yes. It's pictures of the temple. Yeah.
Yep.
And Heather said that during this time, she felt as if her and Billy were a team. It's something that they have together, and it's something that is centered around Heather's talents and ability. And I liked that. I was like, okay, this is like the first time that they kind of find a common ground. It's like Heather is this great, savvy businesswoman who's great at sales. And then Billy, you know, has the finances and is that kind of, what's like power broker bro mentality, I feel like is how he is. Which works.
But it's nice that she's getting to go back to those roots of like being this kind of, you know, I hate the term boss bitch because it seems so just, I don't know, overplayed, but she gets her chance to do something she's really good at. And obviously running a business is this woman's forte.
Yeah. And having her husband recognize that, I think is super important.
Especially because he doesn't seem to have acknowledged it that much in the marriage. I mean, we weren't in the marriage. We don't know. But just getting that feeling that he didn't really acknowledge those beautiful things that made Heather Heather.
Oh, yeah. I don't want to praise Billy too much because this bitch one day comes home and tells Heather he's decided to outsource all the work. She writes, I felt powerless. I had deeply invested in Old Nauvoo because it was something we built together. I felt like I was supporting him and he was supporting me. But what we couldn't figure out as married partners, we could figure out in business. But now I had gotten messed up and I had no say in how we handled it. Instead of trying to persuade Billy otherwise, I swallowed my advice. I was supposed to be his doting wife, not his business partner. Like, just want a bunch of this is throat punches, man.
Well, and outsourcing it takes everything away that she was so excited about. And she had taught herself photography, which is such a beautiful talent. And then she got really creative with that too, with, you know, putting lyrics from hymns. You know, I think that's just, and then he's just taking it away. The first time she's saying she feels like a team.
Yeah, it feels, and okay, I do want to say really quick because I didn't write this in my notes, but in the book she talks about how she was a stay-at-home mom, so she was like taking care of the house and her kids, and then at night like at like 1 a.m. she would watch YouTube videos on photography and Photoshop and all of the like photo editing tools. So she literally, and she would like go to the library and like rent the, you know, check out the books on photography and Photoshop, and she would follow all these Instagram accounts of photographers and reach out to them to like make these connections. So she really was like, in per Heather fashion, going above and beyond because she wanted to be the best at something. You know, it was
and she found this purpose, and children are such a wonderful blessing. But even in my life, just being a mom was never enough for me. And I think most women feel that way, whether or not they're baking everything from scratch because they are big into cooking, and maybe it's contributing in that kind of way. But that's also a way of funneling your energy and talents. And just waking up and being a mom was never enough. I always wanted more. And I think it's important for our daughters to see that we can be more and be good mothers.
What you just said is really good insight, because once again, I just never thought about my mom being a mom sometimes. I mean, I know she's like my mom and stuff, but for the first few years of my life, my mom was a stay-at-home mom, and my mother is a crafty fucking bitch. Like, the things that lady can do with some fabric paint and jewels and like a sewing machine is insane. Like, she's so fucking crafty. She can make anything. And I guess I never thought about the reason that she poured so much into doing her fucking crafts is because, it's a way for her to feel fulfilled, because being a mom isn't always enough. And I feel like every mom I know has some sort of outside hobby, whether it's like reading, they're in book club, or like maybe they're in wine club. I know a lot of people that do that, or, you know, they just like go out and hang out with their friends. Like, they always do have something else outside of being a mom.
And as you should. One day your children are going to grow up and they're going to move out, and they're going to hopefully be healthy members in society. So then what do you have? You've given all this time and effort, and that's your only identity. And then your children move out, and then you have to figure out who you are. And that could be kind of scary to be like, wait, who is this person? When you see other stay-at-home moms, or just other moms in general, who have continued friendships and pouring things into other cups, and their kids move out, and they're like, okay, well, now I'm really sad because my kid left me. However, I still have these outlets and these avenues that, you know, that still fulfill me. You know, obviously every parent is sad when their kid leaves. I'm going to be broken when my child leaves my house. I'm obsessed with her. But it's a natural order of things, and I ultimately do want her to go be independent. But I can't just have her move out, and then what do? I'm depressed and I can't get out of bed, and then I don't have anything worth living for. That's not fair.
Yeah, I also just think the supposed to be his doting wife and not his business partner just like made me sad, because it feels like he did it because they were too equal.
Yeah, and you see couples, I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of the Gaineses, but I love that dynamic that they both bring something to the table, and they've built this empire. And, you know, even though I don't particularly love them, I don't watch their show, I think kind of seeing them from the beginning and seeing what they've built now, like, how cool. And it doesn't feel like, when I have seen clips of the show, that Chip thinks less of Joanne, because she's just as savvy as he is, just in a different way. They both bring different things to the table, and look at how successful they are. And like, why wouldn't you want that in a marriage?
So Heather and Billy, they have been married close to 10 years. Oh, Jesus Christ. Just 10 years was so long.
It's
when
a
the
long
church
time.
asked her, 10 years of this shit, I can't believe that, but they've been married for close to 10 years. And the church asked her if she would want to be president of the Relief Society. She says that this was another affirmation to her that the church was true, because God must have seen that she was struggling and thrown her a lifeline. She's got this terrible marriage where both her and Billy are miserable, and she's really trying to bury that underneath motherhood, homemaking, and now she has the Relief Society. So it kind of goes back to what you're saying. She now has a thing that she can like pour herself into.
Right.
And she says that she was shocked by Billy's lack of support, which, like, what, girl?
That feels really opposite to me, because in the church, like, it's such an honor to have a calling, especially being the Relief Society president. Like, that is a status, like, that's a big deal. So why wouldn't he support that? Because that's not a church thing. So he's just not going to support her no matter what she does.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. He's like choosing to be fucking miserable. So instead of rising to success with her, he shrank. And this made me sad because Heather, through this section of the book, details how she tried to be smaller and smaller and quieter and meeker. But because she's such an overachiever and she's going to be the best at anything she does, she kind of seals her own fate by being the best mom, the best homemaker, the best Mormon woman. She inadvertently overshadows Billy because, listen, I don't know this man. Right? I've never met him. Didn't even Google a picture of him, to be honest, because he doesn't even deserve that to me. But he seems like rich boy who is like, my dad is so mean. Like, is he? Like, I mean, actually, I don't know. I don't know their family dynamics, but he does just seem like, the parable about like the prince that goes off and was like, I don't want to be like famous anymore. And I don't want people to know who I am. So he like goes off into the woods and then people just like stop recognizing him when he comes back because he's dirty and he has a beard and stuff. And he's like mad that people don't know who he is. I feel like that's Billy.
He didn't want people to know who he was.
He says he didn't, but then he's like upset. It's giving like Emperor's New Clothes almost, Like, I don't know. It's like Heather is like being the A+ Mormon wife. And she's being a good mom and she's being a good homemaker. And because she's so good at it and she's getting recognition, he's like mad. And once again, like, sir, that's your wife. That's the one you picked. You chose her. And she chose you.
After 3 months.
Well, this is after 10 years. Like, oh my God, I really can't wrap my head around your spouse not being happy for you. And like, being like jealous that they overshadowed you.
And if you're engaged to somebody and you're listening to this and the person you're engaged to isn't your biggest cheerleader and they diminish your, what you're achieving, they're not the one for you, babe.
No, sound advice. Yes. I just hate Billy. So, and as a Mormon guy, this is not how it's supposed to be for him. His wife is not supposed to be center stage. She's not supposed to be the main character. And
yeah, honestly, and I definitely saw that in the church growing up, where there were just men who either worshiped their wives and they were just like, oh, that's relationship goals. Like, that's who you want to be. Or there were those men that literally just almost like that person who stands in a corner and stares at everybody having fun. It was like that kind of energy. And there's no in between.
I'm laughing because Josh is the person that's in the corner watching everybody have fun, but he's having fun while he's doing that. Like, he doesn't want to be dancing. He wants to just be like watching people makes him sound like he's like a creep, like he's fucking Slender Man or something.
But he's not mad at you for getting out and dancing to your favorite song and being silly with your friends and singing at the top of your lungs. He's probably like, oh, that's my wife. I picked her. Like, that's so awesome. She's living her best life. That's the attitude.
So I really love that Billy is like pissy about the fact that she's an overachiever. I love that she shines so bright that in even trying to diminish her shine, she just like can't help but glow. And I really, really love that for her.
No, and that's a beautiful quality to have.
Yeah. And I also think it just shows how boring Billy must have been, that he's getting not this much recognition.
He's obviously self-conscious of it, that people don't look at him like they look at his wife.
It's giving Charles and Princess Diana, where he was so mad because she was the relatable one, and she is, oh my God, she must have been a PR person's wet dream, because she's like beautiful and she's affable and she's charming and she's like a princess for the people.
And she wants to help people and she wants to do good in the world and she wants to give. Yeah.
And Charles is a robot man. And listen, I'm not hating on him for that. Listen, I'm married to a robot man. But the thing is that if you're going to be a robot man, you can't be mad when your wife's not that. When your wife is fun. She talks about that she feels she couldn't complain too much because on the outside, she has this wonderful life. Sure, she has to fly Southwest, but hey, she's getting to travel, you know? She writes, ambitious women aren't rewarded for their drive and ingenuity. Do what you want, but make sure dinner is on the table by 5.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent here. I get a little frustrated about that because I feel that dynamic in my marriage is that like I work 2 jobs. I choose to work 2 jobs because one of them is my own business that I'm obsessed with and I worked really hard on. So I am really busy, but I feel that constant need that I have to come home and I have to cook dinner and I have to do. And not that I can't contribute to the house, but I feel like I have to do so much work because I am out in the world working and doing these things. And then I just feel like I have to come home and be almost like this stay-at-home mom. And I can get a little frustrated. And I do like to cook and I love to bake bread, but I want to not feel like I have to do those things. I want to feel like these are things I do to contribute in my partnership, not out of obligation.
When Heather's oldest daughter, Ashley, turns 8, she has to be baptized in the church. It's a huge deal for the Mormons because it marks the age of accountability, and that is basically where your sins start to count, which is, I guess your sins don't count between birth and until you're 8 years old. And
no, they do not.
Yeah. Which is great. I mean, hey, you know, Heather, always the go-getter. She wants to make this day really special for her daughter. She plans this huge event for it with decorations and handmade invitations. She wants her daughter to feel loved and have this memory of this beautiful day where her family was surrounding her and she knew that she was loved. Heather says that Billy sees her doing this as a way to go overboard and make the day about herself. And, when she's like, oh, just fuck Billy, honestly. She asked him to wear a white tuxedo instead of the jumpsuit that they usually wear for this type of thing. And Billy realizes that this is no longer about balance. It's about power. And he attempts to undermine the whole ordeal. That is for his daughter. This is for his firstborn child. So he asks Heather to change the time that the event is happening the day before. She's made handmade invitations. She's sent them out, has planned decorations, all of this stuff. She tells him that they can't just change the time. Reservations have been made. The invitations have been sent. And she's coordinated the whole day down to the last detail. Heather says that this was the first time she had learned to say no, and she doesn't change the time. And Billy's response is, do the baptism when you want. I'll move out next week.
Okay. I know people
hit him
can't
with your car,
see
Heather.
my face. Right. He's literally just a guy. I know people can't see my face, but I feel what my face looks like as you're reading that. That is such a bullshit power move to say change the time. For what? For what?
He says he wants to change it because his parents are flying in and he's gonna like have to go pick them up from the airport or something. So he needs to change the time.
His parents are rich. They can get a goddamn limo.
No, for real. That's what I'm saying. Like this guy, I don't understand why he's acting like, oh my God. He's acting like his family doesn't have Howard Hughes money. I don't understand. They have literally bottomless pockets.
Yeah, so like they knew what time the baptism was. I'm sure that the grandparents were going to be there on time. They weren't going to miss their granddaughter's baptism. Oh my God. Yeah, like we do so much for our children. All we need for you to do is show up. Like I will plan the parties. I will I will literally do everything. I just need you to show up for our kid. That's it.
Oh my God, she literally writes that in the book. She has this quote about she wanted to tell him that she would baptize Ashley herself, but the temple won't let her. She's like, I just need you to show up in a white tuxedo.
Like, do you think maybe because you read it and you watched the show, do you think there's some kind of underlining resentment that he had daughters and not sons? Is he that kind of guy?
She doesn't really talk about him that much in their marriage, that much on the show, other than, you know, they were unhappy and they got divorced and whatever. Yeah, and then her daughters don't talk about their dad that much. Or they talk about him, but it's not in detail or anything. So yeah, I don't know. I think really he was just, I think it was resentment. I think he is just jealous of her, you know, because she's being the good Mormon and he's just
and
not,
she's going through so much effort to plan this perfect day. I hate when people say that, like, oh, you're making this about you. When you're like, I'm planning a party. Like, what are you even talking about?
Yeah. So, honestly, it's giving rich boy who's always been praised for everything he's ever done and had, and suddenly is in the real world with somebody who is a hard worker and an overachiever and is willing to put in all of the work, and then they're getting recognized for it, and he's just like not being praised anymore. Just for existing.
Fucking who? Get over it. You're an adult. Move on.
She says that throughout the day, she kept hoping someone would notice her efforts for the day and mention it in front of Billy. She says that she wanted his validation the most. And that is something I think is really relatable. Just the simple act of somebody, anyone, noticing you and your efforts, that yearning to feel seen. She says that her daughter's baptism broke her, which is really sad because she was trying so hard to make it this like beautiful, wonderful thing. And it's the day that like she just is crushed, you know?
Yeah. No, that's really heartbreaking. I hate that for her.
Yeah, and just the wanting... I always say this, like, I don't need anybody to throw a parade in my honor. I just need somebody to say, hey, you're doing a good job. Like, bitch, you doing a good job. That's all I need, you know?
Words of affirmation are my love language. Circling back to that. Like you said, I don't need a parade. I don't need a spectacle. I just, when I've run an event and I've done something and I've worked really hard, I just need somebody to look at me and say, that was really good. Like, you did a good job. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to live on this high for the next week. Like, I get really excited whenever somebody just looks at me and says, that was great. Like, that went really smoothly. That's all I need. I don't need all the praises. I just need just like 2 sentences acknowledging I worked my ass off. And I'm sure that's all Heather wanted, was somebody to be like, this is a beautiful day. You did a great job. And that would have been it.
Yeah, not that I forgot that you're an event planner, because I do know that much information, but I didn't equate that like, oh yeah, you do this for a living. Like, this is your bread and butter. Where, just like having the acknowledgement of being like, which I follow your Instagram, so I see your events and they are beautiful, they are wonderful. So
thank you. I just want to make people happy, and you know, it takes a lot of effort. Even if it's a kid's birthday party, there's a lot of effort and a lot of love that goes into that. And again, just to have 2 sentences acknowledging you worked really hard and you did a good job. And that's it.
Heather and Billy continue to live together as roommates who hate each other. In the summer, he asks her to talk, and she basically says, there's nothing to talk about. He asks her if she really wants him to move out, and she says, I'm just waiting for you to leave. And by the end of the summer, he is gone.
Thank Jesus.
Which I'm going to give a big ol' good for her. Good for her.
Exactly.
Part 4, Bad Mormon. She says that with Billy gone, she enters her horror phase, quote unquote, of her separation. And if you're wondering what a Mormon horror phase looks like, here it is. Heather writes, dinner didn't have to be on the table by 5. Laundry could pile up. Beds didn't need to be made. Dishes could sit in the sink. My photography equipment didn't have to be stored away each night. Garments didn't have to be warm. This was halftime. I didn't have to love Billy. I didn't have to sing to him or serve him.
How freeing. Good for her.
Yeah, like, I have a dishwasher and my dishes still sit in the sink, so it's fine. With all of her friends being Mormon, she feels pretty isolated because she's the only one, going through a divorce in her community. Until a woman named Diana moves into her neighborhood. Diana is also a single mom, and she's going through a divorce as well. They get on like a house on fire. Diana ends up applying to be on The Bachelor. It's a little crossover here. Heather helps her with her photos, and Diana gets casted on The Bachelor. During a party for Diana's Bachelor casting, Heather meets other people that she connects with. She meets a gay couple who ask her about her current status, and she says that they were some of the first people she felt comfortable with to admit the truth to tell them, oh, I'm going through a divorce. They tell her that they were also Mormon, and they were just trying to figure it all out. They tell her it's okay.
So wholesome.
Yeah, they tell her it's okay to walk away from a belief that no longer serves you, and that they'll help her and they'll be there for her.
Oh, I love that so much. That makes me want to cry for her.
Yeah, it's giving finding it easier to talk to strangers than some of your closest friends,
Yeah, which... that's probably how you should tell those aren't your real friends.
Well, not that, they're not your real friends, but sometimes it is easier just to kind of vent to somebody who doesn't have any, prior context to judge you, I guess. I don't know.
I guess it's true. They don't have a leg in the game. They don't really know you. Like, talking to a therapist you've never met before. They're just going to give their objective opinion or view on the situation because they have some of the facts but not all the facts, and sometimes that's really eye-opening when you are talking to a stranger. They can sometimes give you some perspective you hadn't considered. I'm the type of person that everybody tells everything to. Apparently I'm that stranger, and people just want to confide in me. Maybe I have an approachable face. I don't know. But sometimes I'm in the grocery store and somebody starts telling me stuff and I'm like, okay.
Even with her separation, her and Billy are keeping up the facade that they're still together. When people ask her why Billy has been staying at his friend's house, she has an excuse. During this time, Billy still has the keys to her house, and he is just coming and going as he pleases. In my notes, I wrote, oh my God, that is so annoying. Just picturing being a full-time mom, running a church organization, working on a photography business while also trying to navigate your complicated marriage and church beliefs, and having this fucking man just come and go, picking and choosing when he wants to be a father. It's a fucking bee in my bonnet.
Yeah, there's never going to be any closure and no one's ever going to move on in that situation. And I don't know if your listeners could audibly hear my eyes roll as dramatically as they just did. That's still, Billy is still playing the power moves.
Yeah, this is a fucking power play. You're just, my God, it's just so, and also it is, once again, taking away somebody's autonomy. You are entering somebody's space without their consent, and then you are just deciding when you're gonna be a dad. You're not trying to co-parent. You're trying to steer the ship.
Yeah.
It's just like
a ship that has been taken over by women. And it's probably pissed you off.
Yeah, a ship that has probably been impeccably decorated is running in top form.
Yes, so get over it.
Heather decides to draw a line in the sand, which, good for her.
Good.
Again, she changes the locks, and in response to this, oh my God, he's the most annoying man I've ever met. And I haven't even met him. He's the most annoying man I've ever read about. Billy installs a garage code so that he can just waltz in whatever he wants. However, because of her beliefs, she doesn't think that Billy will actually divorce her and will eventually come back. She's still holding on to that hope. She tries to leave him with their kids. I just want to, with his children. thinking that when she gets back, he'll have remembered his commitments in the temple and to his family, and he'll at least be doing some sort of performative parenting. And instead, she comes home and he has cleaned out. He's taken all of his shit. He's left his children running around with full diapers and no food. He hasn't fucking fed them, hasn't done any parenting. He's just cleaned out his shit from the house.
Like, he left them at least with a nanny, right? Like, or he just left. Like, that's child abuse.
He left them.
What the hell? Like, that's at no point in time would that ever be okay.
Listen, I know I'm laughing, but I'm not laughing because the situation's funny. I'm laughing because it's like so fucked up. Like it's like
because it's unreal. Like, that's not real life.
I don't know, like the time frame that he had to be a fucking parent, but it couldn't have been. I don't think it was like 24 hours. It's probably like 5 hours, if that.
It doesn't matter because I'm with my kid if I'm not at work, I'm with my kid and I'm taking care of her. And when I'm at work, I'm expecting my husband to do the same, as he absolutely does, because that's his child. That's his DNA. That's his, like, he helped create that person. So at no point in time would I ever leave this house and think, oh, I hope she's okay. I know she is because that's her dad. Even if him and I were divorced, that's still her dad, and she's going to be okay in his care.
Yeah, and Heather has that mentality. She's like, oh, he's their dad. They'll be okay. Like, He doesn't even feed them. Like, bitch, you can't throw some chicken tendies in the air fryer? I'm so confused. Like, that is basic.
They make dinosaur-shaped ones. That makes everyone happy. Like, come on.
Yeah, she writes, I was reminded of exactly why Billy and I had never worked in the first place. The things I valued were of little worth to him. And to
his children. I
was going to say to this, I just want to say, the things that she values were their children.
Yeah. Like 3 of them, actually. Oh my God. Not the photography business, not anything else, not her friends, actual human beings that need to be fed and their diapers need to be changed. And it's not that big of a deal to change your kid's diaper.
Yeah, wipe that little booty. It's fine. Like, it's not that serious. So before we get into the next part, I just want to put a little trigger warning for domestic violence, just in case anybody wants to fast forward. Just a light trigger warning. So she notices his keys and his wallet are still in the kitchen. She knows he has to come back in to get, keys and wallet. She sees him walking back up to the house and she runs to the garage door. Billy also sees her running towards the garage door and bolts for the same door. So they're running towards the garage door at the same time. Heather puts all of her weight and her strength to keep him out, and he's pushing the door in. Eventually, his strength wins out, and as she puts it, I fell to the floor, and the door slammed open. Staggering up to my feet, I worked to defend myself as our worlds, our diametrically opposed realities, collided like a hole into a hidden iceberg. She doesn't go into much detail on what happened, but it is very clear that they struggled with the door. He got in and something physical happened. She says as the scuffle continued into the house, she ran for the phone to call 911. But she has this moment where she realizes if she calls 911, the secret is out. The jig is up. She would have to explain this to her family, to her daughters. And she feels so desperate for anyone to hold him accountable. So she calls 911 and he runs. Once the cops get to her house, she's had time to reevaluate and she decides that she doesn't want to press charges against Billy, but the officer tells her that they still need a witness statement and that depending on her statement, whether or not they press charges isn't up to her. I don't know how the laws work in Utah, but I do know that this situation had to have been bad enough that the police were willing to be the ones to decide if to press charges.
I have to agree because I feel like if it was just him shoving a door open and she fell. That's not enough for police to be like, we have to press charges. Like, there's clearly more. And that story is obviously very personal if she doesn't want to share, and it's very intimate. And I'm sure, just those are hard stories to share when you've come from an abusive relationship. Not that I'm saying he was physical with her before, but he's obviously physical with her in that moment. And that's so scary because your children were in the house.
Yeah, like I said, she really doesn't go into much detail about what happened. But one, it had to have been bad enough for her to feel like she needed to call the police. And two, for the police to say, listen, okay, my parents have definitely gotten the cops involved in some DV situations that was mostly just like yelling that the neighbors may have heard or something, but they've never pressed charges against each other. So
and they were never forced to either. So
yeah. And once again, I don't know how Utah law works. I'm just saying, like, I feel like it had to have been bad enough for the cops to be like, no, this was extra.
I agree.
She tries to call Billy and ask for advice, but he ignores her phone calls. She leaves a voicemail saying, the police are here and they want me to press charges and give a witness statement. What should I do? He never returns the call. And I feel like this is such a good insight into abusive relationships, because I feel like so many times it's, well, why didn't you just leave? And it's this shit right here. One, she realizes that calling 911 and pressing charges against him is going to implode her fucking life. And she's going to have to tell her children, tell her family, tell his family, who, once again, are extremely wealthy, probably have lawyers on retainer, and this is a person that she loves, that she thinks is going to come back to her.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think that if you've ever not been in an abusive relationship, mental or physical, you don't really have a say in why did you leave, why didn't you? I mean, mental abuse is so deceptive, and there definitely could have been that, which I think that because she's calling him, she felt the need to call the police, yet she's still reaching out to him saying, what do I do? To me, that screams he has fucked her up in the head. And as strong as a woman can be, it is like people get broken down. And obviously, she's a person who got broken down. And it is just not that easy to say, oh, just leave. Because those people are master manipulators, and you just don't know what you're dealing with if you've never dealt with those people.
Yeah, I thought it was telling that she called Billy's like the next person she calls after the police get there to ask him what to do.
Yeah.
And just,
yeah, that really resonated with me, because I feel like that's something that, like, I could easily see somebody in that the mental abuse situation doing, because they've been telling you what to do the entire relationship. So you're still going to reach out to them, right or wrong. You're still going to reach out to them no matter what.
Yeah, and I love the way that she puts perspective into this situation. She writes, "It was my final distress call from the captain's deck. I wanted the master-at-arms to hunt Billy down, rough him up, and throw him in the brig until he got his act together. Shape up or ship out, Billy." And yeah, I just really love that, because it is kind of a callback to her looking across the aisle and wanting somebody to just look back at her. She wants somebody to be like, hey, Billy, you're the asshole. Like, you're the asshole in this situation.
Yeah.
Just that simple acknowledgement.
Looking for lifelines, and that seems to be a trend in her life, is that, she's a strong, independent woman in a world where she's told that's bad. So she's constantly looking for these lifelines for people to help her and guide her, because she can't be who she actually is and what's true to herself and her authentic person because she's being told that's wrong, but yet nobody in her life is looking at her and saying, here's the problem. Now here's the solution. They keep saying, here's the problem. Okay, now figure it out.
Yeah, and I think that kind of calls back to earlier in the book when she talks about the reason she loved Mormonism so much is because they have all the answers. And then suddenly Mormonism has the answers, but to her, it must feel like the wrong answers. You know, she can't get a divorce.
Right.
She can't leave him.
Right.
Yeah, this whole situation, I felt really fucking bad for her in this situation. I mean, who wouldn't, you know?
I know. No, you want to hug that Heather in that moment. There's been a couple of times where I'm like, can I just hug Heather? And this is definitely one of those situations.
Yeah, I will say she looks like a person that does give good hugs. I'll say that. She does. She really does. So Billy ends up telling his family everything. And of course, they take his side. He gets charged with domestic violence in the presence of a child, which is another point I want to make that once again, Heather doesn't go into detail. I didn't go looking for the police reports or anything or any articles about this because if Heather doesn't want to share it, that is fine. That's not my place to go into it and then share it with the world if she doesn't want to share it with the world.
Yeah.
But the fact that he's charged with domestic violence in the presence of a child, I think this situation was a lot worse than I think it was pretty bad.
I think so too. I agree with you.
Heather writes, misogyny runs deep. It was my fault he was unhappy in the first place. It was my fault he left. It was my fault for trying to lock him out. It was my fault for calling the police. And it was my fault he wasn't coming back. Feelings about that?
That's a lot. Because, again, she mentions earlier that you had pointed out where she's like saying, well, he's going to come back. Like, she could not wait for him to leave. And she even tells him, she's like, I just want you to leave. I just want you out of here. Which, again, only leads me to believe even more that there was definitely mental abuse. Because even though she wanted him to leave and she knew that was the right thing and the best thing for her, she was still like, oh, but it's going to work out and he's going to come back. Like, he's going to change and he'll see the error of his ways and everything will be fine. To me, that's just saying, you know, there's so much more to the story that she's not telling. And obviously that's her private life. And I know she's sharing some of it with us, but we don't have to know everything. But that's my insight into the.
To your point, I don't think that she was ready for him to leave. I think that she was trying to call his bluff when this is just my opinion on it. And how I took it is I think that she was really just trying to call his bluff on the whole, I'm just waiting for you to leave. You know, I don't think she actually thought he would leave. And also in the book, she never mentions physical violence other than this one instance, but the whole changing the time of your daughter's baptism the day before, that's mental abuse.
That's abuse. Yes.
Yeah. So I definitely, and the whole taking away her business, that's abuse. That's not only financial abuse, but also mental and emotional abuse.
1000%.
And not taking care of your fucking children, that's child abuse.
Yeah. You can't even change a diaper. You can't even feed them. That absolutely is child abuse. And that, now that I'm thinking about it and we're talking about that more, no wonder the police wanted to press charges because there were 3. Well, she didn't say there were 3. I assumed there were all 3 of the girls in the house because she said the children were running around and a diaper wasn't changed and it was dirty. Police officers are trained to pay attention to those things. And obviously these individuals did, and they acknowledged that whatever was happening in that house was not okay.
Billy ends up serving Heather with divorce papers after this. This is something Heather never thought would happen because it's so unheard of, and she really did believe that he would come back. This absolutely devastates her. She calls a friend who takes her to a Kelly Clarkson concert, and I gotta say, Kelly Clarkson is the artist you want to hear when you're getting served divorce papers.
Facts.
Like, honestly.
Yes.
Since You've Been Gone, that song's gotta fucking hit different when you sign them papers. Okay, I'm not even like hating on that song because I, number one, like Kelly.
Song.
Yeah, that song fucking slaps. And honestly, going to a Kelly Clarkson concert has to be like the best thing for her. Music's so good. I really like it.
She's a girl's girl, man. She's a girl's girl. I love her.
In the wake of her divorce, Heather decides to live it up. She goes out with some friends and they all start drinking. Heather is supposed to be the DD, and she ends up getting a DUI. The legal limit in Utah is 0.08. That's what it is in Georgia. And she blows a 0.05, which I know in Georgia, the limit is 0.08, but we are a zero tolerance state. So the officer that pulls you over, if you blow anything above, like, I think 0.00, they can arrest you.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, her charges get dropped to reckless driving, but this moment shakes Heather. Like, she goes to fucking... If you get arrested for a DUI, that's 24 hours in jail, at least in Georgia. I don't know how it is in Utah. I assume it's the same. So in response to this, she runs back to the church because, once again, they have all the answers.
Right.
And she confesses to her bishop about the drinking and driving, saying that she was so broken, confessing came easy. The bishop tells her, "I'm worried about you. I don't want you to define yourself by this one mistake. I don't want this to be the reason you leave your calling or leave the church or leave the standards you know you need to live by. Put this behind you and don't dwell on it. God knows that you are struggling right now. He loves you. I love you. The Lord loves you. You're forgiven. Go and sin no more."
Oh my God. Yeah. That's actually really a beautiful thing to say to somebody who's going through what she's going through. There's somebody gave her the lifeline she's been looking for. Finally.
Yeah, I thought this was a nice moment. She finds genuine empathy in his words. And this just is another one of those moments that reinforces her love for the church. The church is safe and comfortable. She writes, "I knew how to navigate life with the church's standards. I didn't want to go off the rails if the consequences were so steep." And there's a part of me that completely gets this. There is comfort in things that are familiar. That's just human nature. Yeah. But at the same time, Heather, at this point, she's in her 30s. And she's still learning how to do things like go out and drink and be responsible. I completely understand going through something that is so world-shattering. Like, if Heather's a person that's probably never been in legal trouble before. Like, serious trouble. Getting arrested trouble. Yeah. And that happening has to be, especially because she is such an overachiever. And she's one of those, like, goody two-shoes people. And she's, like, not one of the goody two-shoes people, but I feel like that kind of is her vibe, where she's, like,
she did something that was, like, chaotic and out of control. And she does seem like somebody who wants control of her life. And that is getting a DUI is the complete opposite of what you want if you want control of your life.
Yeah, and having somebody to just, like, pour that out on, and it is something that is familiar, and it is something that has made you feel good at times. Like, I think back to when she was going through the temple and the women were, like, preparing her for the thing, and she has that moment. Like, she I think that she kind of had that same moment of that I feel loved in this moment at my lowest.
And I have I've walked away from the church more than once. I have definitely gone back. When I was pregnant, I was 19 and I found myself pregnant out of wedlock, which was such a big deal. And that was a big taboo thing. And I went back to church and I was very much met with open arms and with a lot of love. And there's something very comforting in that. And I feel like even my church now, if I, even though I don't want to be a part of it and it's not for me, it's not what makes me happy. If I walked through those doors today, I would still be met with love. And I don't think that's always the case with every single church, and maybe not even every single Mormon ward or stake. But most of the people at that church I've known my entire lives, and they know my heart. And if I walked in the doors, they just would open their arms back up. And I feel like her bishop did that for her. Like, maybe the church isn't the right thing for her, but obviously she needed something because she's going through something traumatic, and we all need a lifeline like she's been looking for. And what a beautiful thing for her bishop to say, when that's not always an experience with a bishop. I hear more judgmental stories than I hear empathetic stories. So that makes my heart really happy that she had that experience over a more judgmental bishop.
Yeah, and kind of just like going to the point where she's in her 30s and she hasn't learned how to like be responsible with alcohol.
Yeah, because she wasn't taught to be around it. So she's not going to be responsible if she starts drinking now. It might take her a decade. It took me a long time to have a healthy relationship with alcohol, because all I ever heard was, this is bad. No, no, no. But I need to know, why is it bad? Why? You can't just tell me not to do something and then not give me the why. And so I had a very unhealthy relationship with alcohol for a really, really long time. And it wasn't until my mid-30s. So I'd been drinking since I was 17 or 18 years old, that I finally, nearly 20 years later, I'm like, oh, here's how you do it. Here's how you handle it. And, that takes time. And if you don't have parents that teach you structure when it comes to alcohol, not giving you alcohol, I'm just showing you can have a glass of wine with dinner and then walk away from a bottle, and you don't have to finish the bottle and then go buy another one. That's a gift that you're giving when you can show people healthy ways of drinking and having a good time without getting blackout and getting DUIs. Well, she wasn't blacked out. She was 0.5 or 0.05. That was like a beer. But you know what I mean.
The first person Heather tells about her divorce is her brother. They cry together, and she says, in this moment, she felt as if he had stared across the aisle and made eye contact. She had finally felt seen, but instead he tells her that she can fix things. And I just want to... She has gone through a domestic abuse situation, according to the police filings, with her in front of her children, and her family is saying, well, you can still fix it. It's just, oof.
That's such a Mormon mentality. Yeah.
During a Relief Society meeting, which she's still the president of at this point, she breaks down and tells the counselors that she's going through a divorce. It's here where her first counselor tells her, run and never look back. Heather writes, this was a woman who had been through all the ups and downs of marriage, who had been in love and married for close to 50 years. And yet, here she was, letting the doctrine fall to the side in order to be my friend. It felt like she was the first person to tell me it was okay to leave.
That is what she needed. Those kinds of friendships are, whether you're friends with that person for a 5-minute conversation or you're friends with that person for the rest of your life, those sometimes we just need permission to make the decisions that we're making. And I'm so happy for that woman. I'm glad she said what she said.
Yeah, and I feel like up until this point, I mean, throughout her entire marriage, honestly, I feel like it was Heather performing a part. And this feels like the part became too heavy and she had to just drop it. And I think it's really beautiful that this woman was able to throw their faith to the side and just look at Heather as a person who was suffering and tell her, hey, you're okay. Get out of this. Be happy.
Yeah, I agree. I think that was the gift that she needed. And whoever that woman is, I hope that she just has the best life in the entire world.
Yeah, and I also find it interesting that up until this point, the church and Heather have kind of always had this complicated relationship where, you know, she's trying to mold herself into what the church says. And it is kind of ultimately the church that gives her the out. You know, the church, the bishop, and then this lady in the Relief Society are the two people that really show her that empathy outside of, I'm assuming, like her friends like Diana and the couple she meets at her party, stuff like that. But like, these are people within her own faith that are telling her it's okay. And I think there is kind of like a beauty in that almost.
I agree. To go back to what I was saying before, when I went back after I had, was 19 and pregnant with my first daughter, I had people in the church that just, it was almost very freeing because I had made this decision and then I was like trying to do what I thought was making it right by like going back and dipping my toes back in there. And even though it really wasn't for me, I had people in my life. It was like they didn't say it, but it was almost like they were giving me that permission to be like, hey, you don't have to actually do this. Like, we're going to love you regardless. And they're still a friend I have to this day who we connected over that pregnancy because she had a teenage pregnancy and she has no qualms with me not being in the church. She just loves me for me. And it was like, she was one of those people that almost gave me that permission to be free, that like I could still be loved and accepted for who I was, even if I didn't accept the church in the way that other people wanted me to.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, is that she found that acceptance within the system that she had been so like trying so hard to find acceptance.
Yes.
And then suddenly it's, you know, she's breaking the rules. You know, she's getting a divorce. She has a DUI. And she's like finding acceptance with breaking the rules.
And I think it's really important to going back to free will. If we actually have free will to make these decisions, then we're going to have people in our lives that are going to tell us like, you need to go experience other things. And like, you're still going to be loved and you need to go out to the world. Like, you need to find what's right for you. And I think it's so crucial to have people that aren't like, you have to do this or you won't be loved. It is more important to be a person that goes, go find your way and I'm going to love you no matter what. Because ultimately that church will always be there for her. If she did, I don't think she would go back, I would assume. Like, I would never go back. However, it is kind of comforting. It's almost like a safety blanket to know that there are still people that just, they love you no matter what your decision is. And we need to know that as a person and as a society, that no matter what we decide to do, somebody in this world is still going to love us.
You're Literally On is hosted and produced by yours truly, Dacey O'Kelly. Our editor and resident audio wizard is Dustin Goddard. Thank you so much for your support. Please follow the pod wherever you get your podcast and feel free to rate and review. As always, support your local bookstore and remember to always be kind. Bye.